Alright, let's have a look at some Onvo numbers, the NIO sub-brand, and compare it to competitors and give you a couple of my ways of thinking about this ongoing ramp situation and expectations, as well as a couple of points that we can make here analyzing these data points, which, by the way, they are not official data points. So this is just some of the weeklies that we get. So these are 4 weeks that we have in sales data. They can fluctuate quite a bit. If you look at the Tesla Model Y here, 14K, 1K, 7K, 13K, you can see there are various reasons like Chinese holidays, but also the way companies are exporting or how they are scheduling their deliveries and such, why the weekly numbers itself are really quite volatile, and therefore you've got to be careful with interpretation. However, what definitely is interesting here is the first impressions that we get on the Onvo sales and the ramp. So here, well, let's first go through it. We've got the Jizzy R7, which is a Huawei series brand. We've got the Seeker 7X. We've got the Le Dao L60, so that's Onvo in Chinese. Then we've got the Avatar 07, that's another Huawei Chang'an Corporation. We got the Tesla Model Y. We got the Xiaopeng G6 and the Jizzy LS6, so that's a SAIC Alibaba Corporation. Now, just looking at Onvo, it's between 700, 400, 900, 900, really not ramping up that much so far. And I think if you watched my channel, then you would know that this is in line with my personal expectations. My personal expectations are mainly based on looking at the previous ramps by Tesla and NIO in their certain life stages when they bring out new models and how much time it took for them to get into the market. And so, I don't think these numbers are terrible or bad. I think they're just in line. They're also not very exciting, to be honest. They're just what it is, pretty much on point here, in my opinion. However, I know that there have been recently 2 instances, namely the Seeker 7X as well as the Xiaopeng Mona, which is not on here. This is the G6, so it's a different car, but it's a new car by Xiaopeng. And both of these cars, the Seeker and the Xiaopeng, actually achieved 10K deliveries in the first month. So that's quite impressive, isn't it? And obviously we're now asking, well, what about Onvo? Why is Onvo not ramping as quickly, right? And here, first off, I would like to say, comparing these Onvo numbers here with around 1,000 deliveries per week, that's pretty close to the Xiaopeng G6 here, which is an older model by Xiaopeng, actually one that really impressed me. The first time that a Xiaopeng car really impressed me when I saw this back in 2023, and that's already like 1 year old. It's a direct competitor to the Model Y, and it's also in a similar price range, actually also to Onvo. So, this car is already sold the same amount than the Onvo brand currently, so that's not too bad of a job here, but certainly that's not enough if NIO is guiding towards 10K deliveries by December. So we're definitely not yet to December. So maybe the good news here is that although this has not been this blowout ramp in the first month like the other 2 brands that I mentioned, still it is actually quite some time left until December where we could actually still reach 10K deliveries as guided by Li Bin. And that would be also, again, in line with my personal expectations, even a little bit higher. I'm even more conservative on that, given the fact that I'm also trying to strike a balance between NIO and the Onvo sub-brand in terms of, there could be potentially some cannibalization. So far, luckily, it doesn't look like too much like that, although maybe last week the NIO numbers haven't been too high either, but certainly it seems so far that NIO is not getting affected by the launch of the new sub-brand. And if that's continuing, then that's great. And if Onvo has now more time to ramp to the 10K in December, that's great in my books as well. Especially, given that we now also have to really set the expectations also for Q1, which is the seasonality, which will be the weakest again. If we manage to ramp a little bit up before that, that would be great, because for Q1 I also don't personally have the highest expectations, to be honest. But we'll see. Now, coming back to the Seeker 7X and Xiaopeng, which might be outperforming Ledao as on the launch metrics here, in my opinion, because they are selling through an existing sales network. They're using the existing infrastructure when it comes to sales, the after-sales services, the delivery centers, and the sales guys, which are on the front lines. So that is kind of helping them, in my opinion, to make this process as smooth as possible, while Ledao and the Onvo brand is in a situation that are trying to really become a standalone brand with their own shops, with their own employees, with their own sales infrastructure, which partly they're sharing with NIO, like they have some after-sales services and maybe some delivery center overlap, as well as some closeness, physical closeness of shops to NIO stores. However, it's just a very different thing if you want to start a new brand that frankly currently nobody knows in China. Okay, so we'll still, I think it's still too early to judge the ramp process of Onvo here and the success of Onvo overall. We're really in the early innings of that, and I would give it much more time. I think the first indicator that we have to look for is whether or not they can achieve the 10K for December, or slightly below that. That would be my personal expectations, and if they are getting there. And from there, I think in the middle of next year, that's when we really can, get to the high volume sales of Onvo, where it really kicks in, hopefully. And I have to be honest, like until then, Onvo is not a bullish kind of a catalyst for NIO stock, in my opinion, because we also have to, have some sacrifices with the ramp up cost, with the lower margins in the beginning at these low volumes and so on. And so all of that might be dragging a little bit also on the financial reports. I hope it can be covered up with some, strong sales by NIO, and also some cost savings and other measures that the new CFO hopefully takes in place. But, what really counts for the stock ultimately will also be that when Onvo reaches a certain volume and the margins are high, then it will have a positive contribution also to the bottom line of the business and so on. And that's not to be expected in the first couple of months. That must be clear to everybody, okay? So, that's kind of my more realistic view here, I think, on the Onvo ramp. And, I'm not possibly getting the most positive comments for that, pointing things like that out, but I just want to also give you my expectations and maybe reset some expectations out there by others. I don't think we are in a terrible situation with the Onvo launch right now, but I think there are reasons why it's not, aiming for 10K in the first month. That's totally fine. And I think, as I said, the judgment is still out there. The first metric that I'm looking for is in December, and then next year. What do you think? Thanks for watching.